Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Based Mother Show. My name is Elena Barbera. It is Friday, September 6th, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Tonight's show is going to really primarily be focused on what is happening to America's children, largely in the transgender and the sexualization of our children. I have a few things I'm going to go over with you before I bring on my special guests. I'm bringing on tonight. We have Jaimee Michell, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Gays Against Groomers, an organization that is fighting nationwide to stop the sexualization, mutilization, and sterilization of America's children with the trans movement. We are also bringing on a new partner to Gays Against Groomers, a woman named Carla, who wrote this book, The Gender Trap. And this book is, I've been reading it. I haven't finished, but wow. The amount of knowledge in here is scary, and it's a very upsetting book, and I cannot wait to tell you more about it. Let's get right to it.
Have you heard of the Based Mother?
All right, guys. This week, you may have heard it was all over the news, or maybe not quite enough. Do you remember this scene from last March? This is a woman named Audrey Hale who went into a school in Nashville called the Covenant School, and she committed a mass shooting in which she killed 3 little kids and 3 adults at the school. Audrey Hale, she was 28 years old. She was transgender. She had a lot of mental health issues. And this week, the manifesto that she had written in her notebook came out, and it was publicized. It had been hidden. It had been, sealed by a judge. And finally, it was released. And I'm going to read parts of it to you because it really gives us a picture of what this woman was going through in the years leading up. But I'm going to start on March 27th, 2023, which is the day that she committed this crime, and she also died by kind of like suicide because she knew that she was going to be killed by the cops. So this is the entry from that day. You can see there's an illustration of a gun, and the title for the day is Death Day. Death Day, March 27th, 2023. Today's the day. The day has finally come. I can't believe it's here. Don't know how I was able to get this far, but here I am. I'm a little nervous, but excited too. Been excited for the past 2 weeks. There were several times I could have been caught, especially back in the summer of 2021. None of that matters now. I am almost an hour and 7 minutes away. Can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't. My only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent anything of the sort. God, let my wrath take over my anxiety. It might be 10 minutes tops. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to go quick. I hope I have a high death count. Ready to die. Ha ha. Aiden. Aiden was Audrey's transgender name. That was really disturbing. You know, she hopes her victims aren't ready. She hopes she has a high death count. The fact that she even mentioned God, it's really interesting. Initial report said that at one point she was a student at this school. And I quite frankly, I'm not really sure if that ended up being true. But if it is, I mean, throughout her journal, she mentions God. So there was something in her upbringing that was meant to bring her to faith. And yet she died as a mass murderer. It's really scary, really crazy. Some of the things that she said, though, really talk about her struggle with transgenderism. Reading you another excerpt. Can't butt sex a beautiful young brown girl with a big ass and a small asshole. Pardon the language. It's not mine. It's, if I had a penis, it'd be big and rock hard. Too bad. I am a sad boy born with a puny vagina. Everything hurts. There's so much distress and pain in this. A terrible feeling to know I am nothing of the gender I was born of. I am the most unhappy boy alive. I wish to be dead. I will be of no use of love for any girl. I don't have what they need, boy's body / male gender. She also talks about throughout the thing, there's somebody in here who I couldn't figure out the name, but there's a situation of unrequited love. There's a brown girl who she is madly in love with, who apparently, isn't really going to give her the time of day. And then she talks about actual diagnosis. I've been anxious all last week, all day today, stressed. Then I'm told I'm bipolar by some prideful bitch. No one gets me. Everyone misunderstands autism, typical. So she was being treated somewhere for her mental illness. And she was living, I learned from this diary, living with her parents. I had my favorite meal, chicken nuggets and fries. I listened to 800-273-8245 5 times. I want to die. So I called that number, and I'm just going to real quick give it a ring right now for you guys. It really isn't. Here's.
If you are calling for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, please call 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TA.
So she's seeing a therapist. She's trying to, get this other girl to notice her. She's calling a suicide hotline. She's saying she listened to it. I don't know if she ever actually got through. She's living with her parents. She's on radar. There was another entry where I smashed my figurines today because of the stress. And, it just seems like there were red flags everywhere. And she did want help when in moments of clarity. And yet this girl slipped through the cracks, even at the age of 28 years old. It's a really sad situation. And it'll fit into tonight's conversation in the sense that, people aren't necessarily being treated for their dysphoria that's adding stress to their lives, and instead are just quote unquote affirming it. We're seeing that happen though. She was a 28-year-old woman. We're seeing this happen with little kids. I mean, really little. Now we're seeing videos of people who are quote unquote transing their babies, which is really hard to even imagine. This little video I'm about to show you is a video of some sort of a street fair in Los Angeles, where a grown man dressed in very sexy woman's lingerie is dancing with a child, a little boy, I believe. Just look at this. It's just too much. That goes on and on. I really don't know what possesses a parent to throw their little kid up on stage with a half-naked man who's dancing provocatively in women's lingerie. And there are people who my guests tonight are fighting against this. They're fighting against what's happening in schools, fighting against what's happening legally, what's happening on the streets at pride parades, and they're trying to just wake people up to the truth about what's happening in the transgender, what is it? Social contagion, epidemic, movement, social, like science experiment, because that's what it feels. It feels like some kind of a weird social / science experiment, something that Hitler would have done on children. I'm going to bring up my guests in just a second. We just have one quick commercial here, and got to pay the bills.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
SmokingGunCoffee.com. Use code MOTHER for a discount. That's me. All right. Without further ado, I'm bringing in Jaimee Michell and Carla Curtis. Hello, Jaimee. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. How are
There you are. Hi. So nice to see you, Carla. I can't see you, but you are there, right? Yeah, we can't hear you, Carla. So maybe your audio is off too.
How are you? It's good to see you. Hopefully she'll be here in a second.
Yeah, she'll be here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Carla.
I'm so happy to have you. So if you don't know, guys, Jaimee and I met actually it's almost a year now. It was last September. We met in New York when you were doing a Gays Against Groomers fundraising event in the city. And I came up when I was filming my documentary, American Groomer, about the sexualization of kids in schools. Mm-hmm. And you were generous enough to give me your time and, and be interviewed, and you're featured in the film, and you really brought a lot of value to the film. And it's something that a lot of people have said to me, like, I'm so glad you included Gays Against Groomers. I think not only your knowledge, but just you lent a credibility to the film that I'm not just some, right-wing fascist Nazi bigot, whatever they wanted to call me. You helped soften the blow there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're honored we were honored to be a part of it. I'm so grateful that you asked us to give our perspectives and our input on it, because and like you said, our perspectives and our voices, I think, are so unique. That they hold more weight, in this fight than people like yourself or just straight people in general. They call you every name in the book. They try and say you're homophobic and transphobic, but that's not true. We all know that's not true. I think even they know that's not true. They just use it as a tactic to silence people. And sadly, it works. And they even try it with us. I don't know if your listeners know, but our Wikipedia even says we're a far-right anti-LGBT extremist organization. And it's so crazy because we don't even have a single straight person in the group, like not a single one. So, and I just got married like a month ago. So to a woman, I should say.
Yes, to a woman. Yes, I know. And I met Sasha. I met your wife. I love her, and congratulate. I haven't really had a chance to formally congratulate you except through text. So congratulations. I'm so happy. Thanks. Yeah, right. That's wonderful. Since we last saw each other, though, a lot has happened. Mm-hmm. I really want to focus tonight on this book project that you got into. That's called The Gender. Yeah, I got my copy. The Gender Trap, The Trans Agenda's War Against Children. How'd you get into this?
Well, our Carla Curtis, for your listeners or viewers that don't know, she's actually the author of The Gender Trap. We created a publication company, or a publication part of our organization, to put the book out. She approached us and we connected. She had this great idea. Like she is a brilliant mind and is just a wealth of information, a genius writer. And so we came together and, we decided to put it out under Gays Against Groomers. And so she wrote it and our whole team worked on editing it. I wrote the foreword. And so we just felt like the world really needs to know the truth about what's being done, because there are so many lies told. Like even the word gender affirming care is such a lie. They call it that on purpose to trick people into thinking, this isn't something that's dangerous or negative in any way, when it in fact is. But Carla, did you want to speak on it?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I came of age in the 1970s, and even though at that time it was much harder to be gay or bisexual, there was one thing that really distinguished that era from today, is that no matter who my romantic partner was, I never doubted that I was female. Mm-hmm. And the reason that the book is called The Gender Trap, and the whole premise of it, is that at the time in the 70s, the feminists were very, very clear to make a distinction between gender and sex. Sex is the genitalia and the secondary sex characteristics that you later evolve into. Gender is society's roles that are different for men and women or boys and girls, and what society thinks males and females are, and what they expect males and females to be. And these are very important distinctions. And what has happened is that from about the 1980s or 1990s on, not only laypersons, but the scientific community has conflated sex with gender, so that children or even adults who feel at odds with what their expected gender role is, they confuse it to mean that they're born into the wrong body. And that has been the whole basis for the proliferation of the transgender movement.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's absolutely correct. You know, and it really, we all in Gays Against Groomers take this very personally, because we see ourselves in these kids. Like when we were growing up, you know, back then this trans craze wasn't around, you know, but I always say, like, God forbid I would have been born a few decades later and I 100% would have been told and believed that I was born in the wrong body. I've been a tomboy my entire life, literally my whole life. Like, looking back at pictures of me, like, it's crazy. Like, it's just who I've been forever. It's who I still am. And, you know, I've never one day in my life wanted to be a boy or a man, you know, but I know right now they are just pushing that on these kids. And the children that it affects the most are kids that who otherwise would just grow up to be gay adults, right?
That's right.
So, yeah, so we take it very personally, and there's a lot of misinformation going around out there. And, you know, the book is just a brilliant, such an important resource for everybody who wants to understand what's going on, learn, you know, have tools to fight back against it. And especially for parents, I would say, that, you know, parents who are worried about their children being influenced by this, like how to handle it, children who are already enraptured into the ideology. It gives a way out, basically, and common sense approaches to be able to deal with it.
It seems like there's just this big intellectualism thing that, you know, everybody just decided to believe. We talk about in the book how scientific rigor has become almost a joke in this country. Yeah. And that was a section that was really disturbing to me, that, you know, just the bending of studies and facts and who's funding them. And so to making sure they get the right outcome. Yeah. But even with all that around this gender, how and why did they go after children?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. I think it comes down to money, like pretty much everything in the world, right? The earlier you can get these kids, the longer they'll be patients, like medical patients, pharmaceutical patients for life, because being trans isn't a one-time thing. It isn't like, oh, okay, flip a switch, I'm trans now. No, it's a lifelong process. You have to be on these medications, these cross-sex hormones for the rest of your life, as long as you want to be, you know, present as trans. And, you know, the surgical procedures often come, I mean, more times than not, come with so many complications and follow-up visits and follow-up procedures and medication, and then more infections from that, and other problems arise, and then there's more. It's just like this spiral that once you open that door, it's forever. It's the rest of your life. So obviously, the younger they can get these kids, or just people in general, the younger you get somebody hooked into the system, they'll be, you know, the longer they'll be paying into it. And also I've always said that's probably the number one motivator behind it. But I also think the push to normalize pedophilia, because, you know, if a child can consent to something as extreme as permanently altering their body, castrating themselves, and chopping off healthy body parts, a child, There are detransitioners that I have spoken to and that we know who had double mastectomies as early as 13. I think there was even a 12-year-old in this country that this has been done to. Yeah. And so if a child can consent to something as extreme as that, what can't they consent to? Like, if you give a child bodily autonomy and like they become, they're able to consent to all these things, what can't they consent to? And, I think that the medicalization goes hand in hand with like the sexualization and the grooming and exposing them to the drag shows. I mean, it's just a whole massive mess. And I think the goals are to normalize pedophilia and to make billions and billions of dollars. And as you see, the transgender medical field has become a multi-billion-dollar industry just in the past few years. It keeps exponentially rising. What do you think, Carla?
Well, I completely agree, of course. I think there's another component which I touch on in chapter 8, and that's once you medicalize children and older adults and you turn them into commodities and you take away their foundation of knowledge of who they are, you can control them in any way, shape, or form. So I think the trans movement is part of a much larger agenda to not only sterilize the population, but also to control people in ways that are unfathomable to many, and at the risk of sounding like a quote unquote conspiracy theorist, which is a label that's given to people when what they say makes sense, but you want to discredit it. It really pisses me off. The transgender lobby and the people involved in the transgender movement are none other than the same people who are also involved in the transhumanist movement. Yep. And in chapter 9, I go into a great deal of psychological theory of what it means to be centered, what it means to be in your body and feel comfortable in the world. And if you take that away from a child, there's nothing left of them. So, for instance, if I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl, it's a very short leap to thinking, well, I don't know if I'm a human being even.
I know that sounds extreme, but it's not. Because I always go back to this basic example. If as a little girl, your mother looked at you every day and said, I wish you didn't have those freckles. You'd be prettier if you didn't have those freckles. Right. It's a girl is going to grow up and think that she is ugly, and she could be the most beautiful girl, right, the most beautiful girl in the world and be stunning with her freckles, and she will be insecure about that and will always want to change it and cover it up and will hate herself. That's such a small thing compared to what these parents and teachers and psychologists and doctors even are convincing children of. And so if that can have an impact on how somebody carries themselves in the world, what are we doing to our kids? Like, how are they going to function in the world when they're completely self-obsessed with their bodies?
And they have no foundation of, like, they have no sense of self. I mean, because it's stripped away from them at such an early age, and they're bombarded with these confusing concepts that, to be quite honest, I can't even keep up with. I mean, it's changing all the time. I, as a gay woman, can't keep up with all the pronouns and all the new flags and all, it's crazy. But that's such a good point that you make, and it's so true. And yeah, as well as what Carla was saying, I forgot to mention, I think a giant part of it is also population control. That dabbles into a bit of the conspiracy theory realm as well. But I mean, these people like Bill Gates is very open about how he wants to, how he believes the earth needs to drastically reduce its population. So what better way of doing that than sterilizing an entire generation?
Right. And these kids
all of it. Yeah.
And sorry, these Carla. Kids, and these kids are not, nor their parents, they are not told that being on cross-sex hormones is an irreversible process.
Yeah.
They're never told that this is going to sterilize the kids. And even if the kids were told that, they're too young to make an informed decision.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but the thought of having to live with a decision I made at the age of, when I was a kid, I mean, I've made decisions in my mid 20s, late 20s that I have come to regret. It's like we're literally trapping the gender trap, like that we're trapping these kids into a permanent thing that they are not old enough to comprehend even. And it's just horrifying. Like every day I'm like, I can't believe Gays Against Groomers even has to exist. In my wildest dreams, I would have never imagined this is where, things would lead. But here we are. And, another point is that the trans ideology all it teaches is self-hate, really. It's a movement built on self-hate, and it's teaching children that there is something wrong with them. And it's incredibly regressive. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mermaids. It's like the leading trans youth organization and charity in the UK. And we posted it on our X the other day, but they literally have a chart where it says, it's teaching about different gender identities, and it has a scale from 0 to 10. And like at 0, it's a hyper feminine girl, right? And with the number 0, it literally has a picture of a Barbie, and on the number 10, it has a picture of G.I. Joe being like a full man. And so it's absolutely crazy as a gay person, like as a androgynous gay person, as a tomboy. Most gender non-conforming people are gay, and kids as well, right? Like, I mean, kids, I don't believe have a sexuality, but when they hit puberty and whatever, but and their body changes. But yeah, it's a movement of self-hate. It's teaching children there's something wrong with them, and no child is born wrong. Everybody is perfect exactly as they are. And Billboard Chris, he has this saying that I love so much. He goes, there are 2 sexes, 0 genders, and infinite personalities. Because that's really
perfect.
Everybody's different and unique, and that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with a feminine boy or a masculine girl. It's just it's tragic. I truly believe evil. Like, I don't use that. I don't like throwing that word around, lightly, but it is like true evil that we're up against. And, I think the people pushing this, I think they know that. I think they know how wrong it is, but they are just warped individuals with no.
Well, it's the evil that you're talking about. I completely agree with that. And one aspect of it that I think we sometimes that I'm bent on, and I think a lot of people sometimes forget, is the breakdown, the deliberate breakdown of a child-parent relationships that is in this. So right in preschool, they're teaching kids gender identity, and they're teaching them that their parents may have gotten their gender wrong when they were born, because they saw that you had a girl body part. So they just said you were a girl, but you might not. Your gender might really be male and might really be a boy. And so that's putting a seed of doubt in a child's mind about whether their parent even knows them and understands them, or whether they can trust their parents' judgment. That's just the beginning. Well, and it just gets worse from there.
Well, that's typical cult 101 tactics, right? Like they turn the kids against their family, and they swoop in to become the new family. Like you see groomers like Jeffrey Marsh on TikTok, he'll say, I want to talk to the kids. And then he tells them, go no contact. It's okay to go no contact. They don't understand you. I love you, stuff like that. And it's driving a huge wedge and making kids think that their parents don't have their best interest in mind, or don't like them, don't understand them. It's truly, because then the state and these nefarious evil people step in and can take control of them much more easily if they separate that bond with their family.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. It is a cult. and it is a
Oh,
social
it is.
contagion. I have a question for you, Carla. I'm sorry. I hope you guys have a couple more minutes. I have a
Oh,
question.
sure.
So in the book, there was a section where you're talking about this process of when people enter the arena to get transitioned, and you have a little what should happen versus what really happens.
Right.
Can you give us like the quick rundown on both of those so we can understand the truth about what's going on?
Certainly. What should happen is 2 years in psychotherapy to determine whether the subject is a candidate, whether there are underlying mental health disorders that might make the person think they're gender dysphoric when they're really not, how they're able to cope with the outside world, what is their support system. And only then, after the 2 years of psychotherapy, if there is no other way that the therapist and the subject feel they can resolve this issue, then the person takes a year or two dressing as the opposite sex, and only then, after the mental health is assessed as fine, only then does the person start taking cross-sex hormones. And
Okay.
of course, that never happens. You go into a clinic, 30 minutes or an hour. Sure, you want hormones? Here, take them. And I mean, having been in the field for a long time as a psychotherapist, I'm absolutely incensed to hear and read about all these doctors and nurse practitioners and social workers who dispense these hormones like they were candy. And speaking of hormones, you were mentioning at the beginning of this podcast the transgender individual who took so many lives.
Yep.
When girls who take testosterone, their bodies are not meant to process it.
Mhm.
And you might think of it as road rage on steroids, because
Right.
literally and figuratively, that's exactly what it is. Just as men are not meant to take estrogen, the phrase hormone replacement therapy is a lie. There's no hormones to replace.
Yeah.
You are taking excessive amounts of hormones that your body does produce in very small amounts, but which you're not able to process or manage or handle in large amounts. And of course, the media doesn't want to point this out, that the girl who now looks like a boy shot up all these people because she was taking 20 times the amount of testosterone than even a woman with polycystic ovary syndrome has. I mean, hormones are incredibly powerful. And what a lot of people don't understand is that they affect the brain and the mind as well as the body.
Right.
It's not just a matter of appearing like the opposite sex. And why not change your concept of what's acceptable behavior instead of changing your body? It seems very simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't make any money though, Carla. Except
how did people get fooled into the lie that hormones don't hurt your mind? I mean, I'm sorry, half of the Earth's population are females, and a great many of us, I don't want to hear it, are normally on a regular basis affected by our hormones. And you can see it when our heads are spinning every now and then, right? I mean, I'm sorry, like I've shot fire out of my eyes because of hormones. Just what's happening naturally in my body, and to be able to convince people that that's not real when it's our lived reality.
And they call it gender affirming care, saying like the doctors and therapists and everybody, all these professionals go, in many such cases, they've done like with kids, right? With kids who think they're trans or want to transition, they'll go to the parents and say the biggest lie of all, which is they emotionally blackmail them, saying, would you rather have a living daughter or a dead son? Basically saying, if you don't let your son transition, into your daughter, he will unalive himself. And that's such a lie, because the suicidality rate does not decrease after transition, because the hormones and just I mean, it affects the mental probably more than the physical, honestly. And, you can't play God. You can't play God and expect, and just have no issues. And Gays Against Groomers stance is when you're an adult, do what you want, you're whatever. But, personal belief, I don't know. The whole thing troubles me. I don't think anybody can give informed consent to this, really, because the truth isn't out there. Like the information in the gender trap, these adults who are transitioning don't know that, all of it. They're not told the truth at the clinics and at their doctors and on the operating table. So,
that's why I wrote the book, because it lays out very clearly, step by step, all the medical research, all the ramifications of what happens when you do take cross-sex hormones. And also, one of the things that I wanted to do in this book was, when I was doing the research, I thought, okay, there has got to be quite a lot of changes since when I was your age, Jaimee, and now, how do people feel about gender? Because you have women who are doctors and lawyers and hold political office. Surely people are much more enlightened than they used to be. And what I found in doing my research was studies from 2 years ago, 3 years ago. People still have a very antiquated vision of what women are and what they should be, and what men are and what they should be. It's astounding. And I think parents could really help prevent a lot of the damage that the trans community is doing to these kids by opening their minds about what is acceptable behavior and inclinations and activities for boys and girls. Because I was shocked. And you've read the studies, you've seen it. People are still very old-fashioned about this stuff.
Yeah.
Can I just respond? So they are and they aren't. So I think I see every young child I see that there's a girl is in sports. They have leadership opportunities that they're learning in sports. They're in STEM. They're being exposed and given opportunities that, say my generation wasn't. I wasn't really allowed to play sports. So I don't really think that in action they're antiquated. I really don't. What I do see, though, yes, that's some of the characteristics that are still used to describe the behaviors of women and men. I think to some extent, those stereotypes exist for a reason, because we are, generally speaking, of course, very different creatures, and by nature. And I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. I don't want to blend us all into one and pretend that women are the same as men and vice versa.
I don't think I say that in the book, but there is one study done by neuroscientists, and because people have said pretty much what you're saying, that women and men are quite different mentally and psychologically. And what these neuroscientists found out was that any given population, you have a woman who is 40% of women have more quote unquote masculine brains than men do. And what they meant by that is that people are a mosaic of masculinity, what we call masculinity, and femininity. And there's a whole range of behaviors and preferences. And yes, you do have some women who naturally fall on what we consider the very feminine side of the spectrum, just as you have males who naturally fall on the very masculine side of the spectrum. But there is a whole range in between that. And astonishingly, there is still a lot of prejudice, hidden prejudice, subconscious prejudice, but prejudice nonetheless, that girls and boys should be different to that extent.
I think, sorry, Carla.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I think, the gay community, gays and lesbians have been really working to, kind of dissolve the rigid binary gender stereotype, like,
Right.
because gay women are often more masculine and gay men are often more feminine. And what's really resentful, what I resent so much about the trans movement is that it's, seemingly overnight kind of building and reinforcing all those stereotypes back up. Like, as I was saying with like the chart from Mermaids, I mean, they literally go Barbie to G.I. Joe, and it's like, I wanted to play with G.I. Joe. I only had Barbie so I could cut their hair. I love cutting their hair and dyeing their hair.
I played with Matchbox cars and the little racetracks. I loved that. Yeah,
so it's totally crazy. So they are, they call themselves progressives, but that is the most regressive thing I can imagine, really, telling children that and basing your identity in such rigid terms. But like, I get what you're saying, and I get what Carla's saying too, and I feel like this trans movement just is really, it's kind of going back to like 1950s standards of what a man and a woman is, or a boy.
It's very strange. It's very strange, and that sort of rigidity that you're talking about. Yeah, it really is. And I actually think, Carla, I think we probably agree more than we disagree on this. I think maybe I think you guys were speaking the same language. You're like going down a parallel line, but But I think I understand what both of you are saying, and you're both correct, I think so.
Well, one of the things that I was so surprised to read about in the research was how parents unconsciously reinforce gender stereotypes, even if they don't mean to. They'll talk to girls in a different way than they talk to their boy babies. Fathers smile when the girls smile, and they talk to the girls about their body and how they look, and they talk to boys about the good job they do. And this is even enlightened parents. And there are many, many examples of this in the book. And so I think it's a good manual for parents because it may help them see that their biases are maybe more widespread than they would like to believe.
Do you think that those biases are contributing to this epidemic of parents buying into this transgender movement?
Oh, absolutely.
How so? Like, help my kindergarten brain understand.
Well, if I'm uneasy, if my girl is a tomboy, and if she's really brusque, and if she's butch, and if I'm upset because, say, especially fathers tend to get very upset when their sons are sensitive, they're not interested in sports, they're not real men, and they discourage boys very actively from talking about and expressing their feelings. And even you've heard the phrase, "Oh, you throw like a girl." Think about how insulting that is. But parents definitely have ideas about how their boys should behave and how their girls should behave.
I guess if parents that are really stuck on that, though, I have a hard time feeling that if the father who thinks his son is too feminine is going to be like, I might as well just throw a dress on him, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's not making sense to me.
No, I think that kid then, with the environment we have today, gets kind of like sucked into the trans idea. And,
he doesn't belong at home. So he doesn't feel like he belongs at home.
Right. Yeah, he's not a male enough, so he must be a female.
Exactly. And then they go to school and they learn all this stuff. And it's like, oh, I'm not actually a boy. I'm a girl. I was just born wrong, and then that starts. So no, I don't think a dad who has a problem with a feminine boy, his feminine son, would want him to transition. No, but I think it really creates a wound that festers and can easily other influences can easily get in there and manipulate the child.
Right.
I think the moral of the story really is that there's no wrong way to be a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really,
And I agree with that. We all are in agreement on that. Yeah. And I think before, when that happened, when you know, the mother who was not thrilled with her tomboy daughter, or by the father and the son situation, you know, there was no outside influence to come and steal the child's mind away. So the kid just dealt with it like we all deal with our parents. There's no I don't know very many friends who said like their parents were Mary Poppins and, you know, their mother was Mary Poppins. Like we all have different things that we deal with from our mothers and our fathers,
you know,
and that's part of life. So, you know, those people, they just went on, and when they grew up, they were able to just like go be themselves, whatever that ended up being. And now that choice is being stolen from them by this medical, industrial, social I keep calling it a social experiment because I'm more and more convinced that's what it is.
It's a medical experiment too. They're literally medically experimenting on these children. They don't know the long-term side effects that these you know, puberty blockers, aka Lupron, aka the same drug given to pedophiles to chemically castrate them. They don't know the long-term side effects, and everything we do know is obviously horrible. You know, so like, who knows? Like, kids haven't been getting puberty blockers like this for very long. So who knows what they're gonna be like in 40 years from now? Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
In certain cases, though, like an 18-year-old girl with osteoporosis, right? We're seeing teenagers in menopause.
That's what I'm saying, like already. But like I'm saying, we don't know what 40 years down the line looks like for, you know, somebody who took puberty blockers. I use quotations all the time whenever I'm speaking about this crap because I hate the labels that they give these things. It's a lie. So first of all, there's no pausing, but let me get back on track because I can. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Now I lost my train of thought. That's what always happens, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, yeah. You're saying, that you use everything in quotes because it's all lies. They're using
puberty blockers, gender affirming care. It's reversible. Yeah, no, you can't just pause puberty. There's no pause button. Like, it's not normal. It's not natural for the body to pause, you know, developing naturally.
I would have hit that somewhere around like 32. I would have been like, okay, I'm good here. Boom, you know?
Right? When I pause, I'm turning 40 in a few months. Can I pause?
True gender affirming care is to let the child be whatever he or she is. That's true gender affirmation.
I agree. And it's really sad that the parents are getting, you know, some parents I blame, like you can tell when a parent like is forcing this on their kid, and some I think the majority of parents are being lied to and are trusting professionals who should have their best interests in mind and the child's. They're trusting them and, you know, being duped into this whole thing. Like even Elon Musk, you saw him come out. He told Dr. Jordan Peterson that, you know, even he bought the lie and signed off on his son Xavier getting puberty blockers, quote unquote, puberty blockers.
Chemical castration.
Yeah. So even the most brilliant man on earth, you know, fell victim to this because parents want to do what's best for their kids. And if their kid is in distress and the doctor's like, this will help them, and if you don't do this, they will die, they will kill themselves. Like, of course, they're gonna want to do that. And that's why I always say the biggest obstacle we have in Gays Against Groomers and just in this fight in general to end the war on children is awareness. People don't know this is happening. And if they do know, they don't know what it means. They don't know what these drugs actually are. They don't know. So that's why, you know, we were so excited to partner with Carla and put this book out because it is like your one-stop shop for everything. And
it's fantastic. It's so thorough. When I got it, I was like, wow, this is everything I read was, you know, you could look it up, you could verify it. It's jam-packed. I'm so impressed.
It's like an encyclopedia of like.
But you know, I hate to bring this up, but I'm gonna. So this is also a politically motivated. You know, tomorrow night the Human Rights Campaign is having their national dinner, and vice presidential candidate Tim Walz is their keynote speaker.
Really?
Yes. So, you know, this is an organization that, you know, you are at odds with. the Human Rights Campaign. It has a lovely, I mean, it sounds very nice. Human Rights Campaign.
Yeah, right.
They must be doing something good.
That's what they do with their words, like Black Lives Matter, same thing.
Yeah. So what's your take on the HRC?
Oh, well, I think that they're corrupt. They do not have the best interest of gays and lesbians in anymore. And similar to GLAAD, what happened was gay people fought for equal rights, to have the same rights as every American. We got those equal rights. And then as far as I'm concerned, and everybody in Gays Against Groomers, and I think I speak for the majority of gays and lesbians in this country, we should have packed it up and gone home instead. But, that doesn't make very much money, just conceding and being like, wow, we did it. Let's go home. No, they had to create new ways to create new victims of oppression that doesn't exist. So obviously the next step is the trans fight, and making, taking them on and then making trans kids a thing. And so I think that they're incredibly corrupt. They don't care about gays and lesbians. I don't think they care about anybody. They care about money. So I actually didn't know that event was going on. That's good to know. Do you know where that is?
I don't, but I'm sure it's easy enough to find out on their website. Yeah.
I might try and get a gag truck there last minute to be outside of it.
Oh, all right.
That'd be, yeah.
Let's please let me know about that, because I'd love to follow up on that.
Yeah, these organizations, LGBTQIA+++ now, organizations don't care about anybody. They care about money. And it's funny. Early on when I started Gays Against Groomers, I was being interviewed and somebody said, where do you see Gays Against Groomers in 5 or 10 years from now? And I was like, I really pray to God we don't have to exist. I don't want to be doing this in 5, 10 years from now. I want the fight. I want to win. And then I want to go on with my life. I'm not in this to be perpetually trying to find a new fight. And these other organizations and operations don't work that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tim Walz is a nightmare. I mean, he made Minnesota a trans refuge for kids to come, if their state has banned child sterilization and mutilation, they can come to Minnesota and get operated on and get the drugs. So
that I don't think people really understand that. Like somebody else can come and get your kid, take them to Minnesota, give them medical drugs and surgeries to change their gender, and you have no more rights.
No, that's correct. Oh, you froze on my end.
And Carla, I know that sounds hyperbolic, and maybe it is, but if all of a sudden, hello? No. Are we still there?
Now I got it. Now you're back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I must, and maybe that sounds hyperbolic, but I think it's kidnapping.
No, it is
to take away a parent's rights, and this is again back to the parents and the breakdown of the relationship and keeping children, in a cult.
Yep.
That's insane.
No, it's
that he did that.
It's literally legalized kidnapping, and it's trafficking. I mean, they have this in California. They have it, I believe, in Washington now. And they have it in Minnesota. There may be a few others, but people don't realize that Minnesota is on par with California when it comes to this. And that's because of Tim Walz.
Yeah.
So he's very, he's a total radical, very dangerous guy. He comes off all hokey and hunky-dory and like this weird goofball, but he's not. He is a radical through and through, and he wants to legally kidnap children and chemically castrate them and chop their body parts off. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's not fun to say, but like, we have to speak real words. We have to call things what it is. We're not going to tiptoe around it, and because that's getting kids in a lot of trouble. And sadly, a lot of them don't make it out of this. So
yeah, and this isn't conspiracy theory. This is real. This is a real law. It's happened in California. It's happened in Maryland, where that couple that with the news just came out recently. They're suing the hospital because the hospital took their child away, called Child Protective Services because the parents were like, I don't think our son really needs. The son was autistic, convinced by the hospital that maybe he was born in the wrong body and started to transition the kid. The parents are like, please no. And then they were separated by law from their child. This is happening all over the country and it has to stop. I've kept you guys longer than I said I would. And I could keep you here for another hour, but I won't. I want to let you get to your Friday night. I know you just got married. You're like still in a honeymoon, and I want to let you get back to Sasha. Carla, do you have any closing comments and thoughts? And make sure we have to let everybody know where to get a copy of this book. And there's also a link if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube in the description of the video. There's a link to purchase the book there too. But Carla, please.
I just hope that as many people as possible read this book. It's vitally important. And as you said, it's really thorough. I spent 4 years writing this, and any reasonable person would see that the transgendering of children is a horrible, horrible mistake. You can only reach that conclusion. There's no other takeaway from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Completely agree. Very well said. I mean, truly,
it's terrifying. We're living in this crazy sci-fi horror movie when it comes to these children. When you see the way some of these surgeries end up, it's all unnecessary, absolutely brutal. All right, Jaimee, leave us with your final thoughts.
Well, I just want to thank you for having both of us, and I'm just honored to be here with the brilliant author. And we're so happy to have put it out. And for anybody that wants to get the book, go to thegendertrap.com. We are working really hard to get it up on Amazon, but they're not being very friendly to us right now. So we're working on it. At the moment, the only place you can get it is thegendertrap.com. We do ship internationally, but hopefully, it will be on Amazon very soon. If you'd like to help support Gays Against Groomers and the work we do to end the war on children, we have 0 big donors. We are literally funded by our supporters. So if you'd like to help us in any way, you can just go to gaysagainstgroomers.com to learn more. You can join, you can donate, and anything is incredibly helpful. And yeah, I mean, we are going to win this fight. One thing I want to say is this conversation is very depressing. It's not fun to talk about. It's not really fun to think about, but we have to. But, I always say that it's not a matter of if we end this nightmare, but when. And I just want to let people know that we are making a lot of progress. In the past 2 years, Gays Against Groomers is just a little over 2 years old. And in that time, we have gotten child sex changes banned. We have assisted in getting child sex changes banned in, I think it's 25 states now. So we're halfway there. What we need and what we demand is a national ban on these procedures and these drugs. And we are going to get there, step by step. But in 2 years, that's pretty good. So I just hope it ends sooner than later, because more and more kids are falling victim to this every day. So, but get the book, read it, share it. It's an incredible resource. Not biased on this. Like, if we didn't put it out, I would have gotten it the day it came out. So it's really invaluable stuff. And so thank you, Carla, for being here with me and for writing this incredible book. And thank you to you, the Based Mother, for having us on the show.
I'm it's so great to meet you, Carla, and so great to talk to you again, Jaimee. Thank you, guys. And thank you for the work you're doing. I'm so psyched to be in this fight with you. We're working on separate issues at the same time, but we're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to take our children back, because they have come for our children, and we're going to get them back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you both.
Have a good night. Thanks.
You too. Wow, we could have talked to them all night long. They are such, there's a wealth of knowledge in this book. There's a level of detail on the science, who's behind it, the history. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing yet. I keep flipping around because I'm getting excited by the knowledge I'm gaining. Highly recommend reading The Gender Trap. If we don't fix this problem, try to imagine, the things that are happening, like with Audrey Hale, the shooter at the Covenant School in Nashville, who I talked about earlier, this school shooting that just happened this week. in Georgia. That kid, today it came out that he had some sort of a problem about trans acceptance. He was mad about it. Like, it's just more and more. They're just loading these kids with chemicals and SSRIs and all this stuff that's just whacking out their brains, and they're turning into psychopaths. And not to say that you have to be trans to shoot up a school. Obviously, that's not the case. But we're seeing more from that community. And it's really, if you think about what is this going to look like in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years, what's this population of people? How pained are they going to be? How traumatized? How completely off the edge of insanity are they going to be? And how are we going to, as a society, handle it and cope with them and help them when we can just prevent all of it now? It's all preventable. All preventable. This massive mental, emotional, and physical trauma that we're placing on kids for money. Everything's for money. Everything's for money. We're going to hell in a handbasket. All right, guys, thank you so much. Listen, if you're watching, please go to Rumble and Twitter and follow the Patriots Prayer Network. Make sure wherever you're watching, like, sub. On the Patriots Prayer Network, there are a bunch of really cool shows with hosts who have all different angles and perspectives, all generally, though, yay, America. We are all patriotic and we love this country, and we're trying to get some truth out to save it and to save its people. So thank you. God bless you. God bless America. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Have you heard of the based mother?